Hello, friends. Welcome again to another episode of the POTLUCK Podcast. Jared Cornutt, joined by my co-host, Alan Murray, because Matt Hensley is watching softball tonight, apparently. So it's football season, Alan. I don't know why he's watching softball, but how are you doing?
I'm doing well, especially because it is football season. Matter of fact, there's a game on right now on the West Coast for Monday Night Football. College football, I got it on too, not going to lie. College football has been absolutely insane this last week. My Panthers need to fire their head coach. But football's back, and I'm excited about it.
Yes, I went down to Austin, Texas, which they should never allow a game to kick off in September in Austin, Texas at 11 a.m. That should be absolutely illegal. But me and my oldest went down to the game and watched Alabama probably get away with one that they should have lost. But at the end of the day, all that counts is who has more points on the scoreboard. And Alabama did, and the eyes of Texas were very sad that day, is what we'll say. The Longhorn fans did not handle it very well, and I got to teach my son a very valuable life lesson. I leaned down to Andrew and I told him when the game ended, son, this is one of the best parts about college football. When you come into somebody else's house and they think they're going to win, and you watch them walk with their heads held down, and we walk with our heads held up high. And he started doing horns down. I don't know where he learned that, but I said, let's not do that here. Let's wait till we get back to the van, and then we can do that the whole way home. And we did. And at Buc-ee's as well. But we're not here to talk about college football, though we could talk about that all night, and I would be happily content with it. But this is not a college football podcast. This is the POTLUCK Podcast, where we talk about the Southern Baptist Convention, Southern life, things like that. Big news out of the SBC yesterday, Alan, is that Matt Carter, who planted Austin Stone a number of years ago and then went to go help lead Sagemont as the senior pastor there in Houston, Texas, announced that he would be retiring as a senior pastor and would join the North American Mission Board and Send Network as a vice president of mobilization effective on October 1st. Vance Pittman said, I could not be more thankful to have a friend, my friend Matt Carter, joining this team at Send Network. He's a seasoned church planner with a shared passion for God's glory among the nations. I'm excited to co-labor with him in the expansion of God's kingdom through a movement of churches, planting churches everywhere for everyone. Pittman said Send Network also plans to announce other new initiatives and leaders in the coming months. This is a big get for NAMB, but we really need to talk about the way that it came about. Matt is a young guy. He's 48 years old. He's not been at Sagemont long, maybe 2 years. I think maybe 2 or 3. I've been at Plymouth Park. I know longer than he's been there. And Matt has had a litany of health issues. You can actually watch. He talks for about 6 minutes during his sermon yesterday. He's had cancer twice, but he has got a heart disease that results in a lot of plaque buildup. He actually said he had 90% blockage in his widowmaker, which is very scary. And his doctor just said basically some things have got to change. And the stress of leading a large church and preaching week in and week out was something that he just decided he needed to step away from. In fact, in the sermon, Alan, he said, I pastor this church, but I have to pastor my family. Anybody can pastor this church, but only I can pastor my family. And I thought that was a very good word. So big get for the North American Mission Board. Sad for Sagemont, but man, NAMB with Vance Pittman and Matt Carter, they've been really hiring some big names here that help lead out in church planting, haven't they?
Yeah, no doubt. Definitely a mobilizing pastor, a very encouraging pastor. I think I heard Matt Carter preach at the discipleship conference here in North Carolina 3 or 4 years ago, maybe a little bit longer than that. And definitely a great, encouraging preacher. And kudos to him for wanting to take care of his family. A lot of guys die in ministry because they put ministry before their own health, and they put ministry before that of their family. I would imagine the VP at NAMB may have some unique stresses as well, depending on the day, depending on the week. But we pray our blessings on the future of NAMB and his former church and on Matt Carter.
Yeah, Matt will get to stay in Houston. They'll stay members of Sagemont, he says, and he'll be able to work from Houston. I got to imagine doing church planting for NAMB, you really don't have to be based in Marietta because, well, we don't plant just in Marietta. We plant all over the place. And Houston has 2 very large airports, so he can get anywhere in quite a hurry if he needed to. And I think our other co-host, Matt Hensley, if he were here, would tell you that he is a big fan of Matt Carter. In fact, Matt Hensley ran against Matt Carter for Pastors Conference president 2 years ago, and I don't think anybody was more encouraging to Matt Hensley than Matt Carter was, his opponent in the race. And I think Matt Carter was more relieved than anything that he didn't win, and Matt Hensley did. He had to put up with all the shenanigans. But man, prayers to Matt Carter. Hopefully he can get his health situated. I don't know what kind of treatment there is for his heart disease, but hopefully there's something out there. And hopefully maybe working for Kevin Azale is a little bit less stressful than working for a bunch of church members because, well, Alan, as we know, ministry would be great if it weren't for the people, right? Kidding to an extent on that.
There'd be no ministry without people.
There would be no ministry without people. But
I think this is proof that pastors do work sometimes more than an hour a week. I'm not sure about mission strategists, but pastors definitely work at least more than 1 hour a week.
Work at all, from what I can gather. I say that as somebody who has an 8:37 a.m. tea time tomorrow, but it should be noted that it is with a church member who invited me to go golfing with him. And it's a member I haven't visited with in a while, so I am looking forward to that. So that is, I'm doing my favorite visit. I'm going to visit the Greens, which is one of my favorite people to go visit. Well, that's not the only thing going on in the Southern Baptist life. We got some hotel information for SBC 23 that just released. Everybody's always looking forward to the annual meeting for one reason or another. And reservations for hotel rooms are going to open up at 8 a.m. Central Time. Alan, that'll be 9 o'clock Eastern, so you get the little bit later in the day for you. On Monday, October the 3rd, Jonathan Howell, friend of the podcast, says, we want messengers, guests, and exhibitors to map out their budget as they plan for the 2023 annual meeting in New Orleans. And Bart Barber announced the theme of the annual meeting, pointing to 2 Corinthians 4:5. He said it will be serving the Lord and serving others. Now, Alan, I clicked to look at the we'll put this in the show notes. I found this very interesting, and you tell me what you know about this. There are 2 convention hotels, the Sheraton New Orleans and the New Orleans Marriott. They're actually cheaper than Anaheim Convention Hotel, which is nice. But they're 6 blocks away from the convention center. And then there are hotels like the Hilton New Orleans Riverside, which is adjacent to the conference center. So I just found that interesting. There's several hotels, 5 blocks, 4 blocks, 1 block, 2 blocks, that are a lot closer than the convention hotels. I just found that kind of interesting. Usually the convention hotel is adjacent to the convention center, but that's not the case this year.
Yeah, might need to spend some time on Google Maps, but I really wish that you just let folks read that on their own, because now all of those cheaper hotels that are just a block away are going to be taken up. Maybe the convention center is really spread out and the entrance is 6 blocks down and the hotel's on the other. I don't know. The one time I went to New Orleans was just a few years after Katrina, and they still had not recovered at that point.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure, but I will say this: they'll probably be booked up really fast. All the ones that are cheap and all the ones that are close, they'll be booked up quick. So if you want to book a room, I would be sitting there ready to go. I did that for Birmingham, and they got snatched up pretty quick. Did Airbnb for Orlando in 2020, and that was the worst convention any of us have never attended. So be prepared, 8 o'clock that morning.
So, and
Eastern time.
I always hear people complain about this. I have no insider information. I have no every year I have gotten the convention hotel. And the way I've done it is I've gotten on exactly when it was time. I've waited and I booked it. And last year I was on a wait list. I had to check some stuff, but the next day I got the email confirmed that I was there with my first choice of hotel. So get on there. Maybe look at Google Maps and all those. The great thing about the website, sbcannualmeeting.net /hotels or /hotels, it tells you the distance to the convention center, the room rate, whether breakfast is provided or you have to pay for it, and then information about parking. Many of them have self-parking and valet parking at an additional cost, of course. So if you're flying or renting a car, that's good information to have, because you're not going to be just paying for the room, you're paying to park your car and things of that nature. New Orleans, I don't know where the convention center is in relation to downtown. If it's close to downtown, you may not need a rental car. You might be able to just Uber. That's what Anaheim was. I just Ubered Uber to the airport. We had a rental car before that for vacation. But that should be available. So, Alan, Lord willing, you'll be there?
Lord willing, we're talking about it. We're planning on it. I talked a couple episodes back where we even looked at taking a train there.
Yep.
That might be an option. Since talking about that, it seems the airfare is a little cheaper than the train, but there's a lot of stuff to factor in. So, but we're hoping to go, Lord willing.
Lord willing,
with our bacon and beans to fight the British in the town of New Orleans.
God save the Queen. Okay, on to the next topic here. Al Mohler had an interesting weekend, to say the least, where Canon Press, which is a ministry of Doug Wilson's church in Moscow, Idaho, Christchurch. It's their literature ministry. They also have a streaming platform called Canon Plus, and they took some of Al Mohler's content from some addresses at ETS, the Evangelical Theological Society's annual meeting, and uploaded it to their platform. When Mohler was asked about it, he said that neither he or his staff had any communication with Canon Plus. They had not granted any permission. And just an hour after Mohler's tweet there, Canon Press announced a special first month rate for subscribing with discount code Mohler. For that, they say that everything is legal and on the up and up for that. And Dr. Mohler had a pretty interesting tweet, didn't he, Alan?
He did. Dr. Mohler is certainly a witty individual. He tweeted, "Evidently, a media platform has announced the release of some of my material. No communication with me or my staff. No material or no permission from me. Material is taken from my addresses to the Evangelical Theological Society. Take an aspirin. I'm not moving to Russia now or ever. #niet," which is no in Russian. And so I thought that was incredibly witty. Obviously, there is some banter coming from Moscow, Idaho. Of course, there's probably some banter coming from Moscow and Russia as well. They say this was, kind of public information because they were public addresses, but it's just not charitable. On the very basic level, I don't think as people that are professing to be Christians to not try to be charitable, but then to turn around and be petty and have a discount code with Mohler's last name. But I appreciate the wittiness of Dr. Mohler, and I'm relieved in a lot of ways to know that he's not being published willfully by Canon Press. As a Baptist, of course, I've got some concerns with Canon Press, and a fun week in Southern Baptist life. And
it was the folks in Moscow life that were recently comparing the transgender movement to baptism by immersion, was it not? Was it the same group?
I think so. I might have to verify that. I don't know, but I definitely saw the clip of that.
Yeah.
That also was not very charitable or honest.
No. Also a bit hypocritical to call Mohler woke and others woke as well, and to put them on your street. Just very ironic that they come after Mohler as being woke. Of course, Wilson wrote the book Slavery, Southern Slavery as It Was, a 1996 book that challenged historical depictions of slavery in the South as largely false. He, in 2013, wrote another book called Black and Tan, which talks about America's failure to remove slavery in a biblical fashion. So he's a bit of a controversial figure in a lot of different ways. And, they don't get baptism right. So it is what it is. Alan, you want to take us into our Southern culture topic?
Yeah, this one was inspired by a trip to our local library today. Every time I go to the local library, they've got a set of books that are for sale. You can buy one book for $0.25, or you can buy 8 books for $1. They really try to get rid of those. And I found 4 books today. I did not buy one of the books that inspired our topic today, but I saw a whole slew of Southern living cookbooks. If you live in the South and you have a grandmother, you have probably seen a Southern living cookbook, if not a whole series of cookbooks. They have been around since 1979. They have been releasing an annual recipe cookbook. That is a lot of Southern cooking. Jared, have you ever seen these Southern Living cookbooks? Do you have a collection of them right next to your SBC annual meeting annuals and your Spurgeon library? You've got Southern Living cookbooks.
Um, I I do not have the Southern cookbooks in my church office nor in my house, but I have seen them because my grandmother had a whole slew of them growing up. I'm pretty sure she used them for recipes. I'm more of a modern man. I just smoke a bunch of meat, and my wife does most of the sides. If I do cook a recipe, I just usually look it up online. So I don't really have a need for a cookbook. But I've seen these my whole life growing up. I feel like they're a staple for grandmas in the South. Everybody's grandmother had one, and I think probably every grandmother out there looked at the recipe as a reference, but probably added their own twist on it as well, as grandmothers are really good at doing. But yeah, I think this football game is crazy, Alan. I just can't not even say anything as we're watching this. But yeah, Southern Living cookbooks, I'm very familiar with them. Never used one. Have you ever used one for a recipe?
Yeah, if memory serves me correct, doing some cooking with my grandmother, I've used these. There's always inserts in Southern Living magazine to subscribe from these, and they've had different covers, colors down the spines that have the years on them. And it's always looking at somebody who's got a collection of them. You know, you go back into the 70s and the 80s. They're kind of faded over time. And so it's always interesting to me to see these. I love cookbooks. You talked about not using cookbooks and having smoked meats. I've got a bunch of smoked meat cookbooks that I use. I bought 53 pounds of Boston butts today and 50 pounds of leg quarters that I'll be cooking along with a venison ham tomorrow evening into Wednesday morning. And I love
butts can you put on your smoker?
Depending on the size, probably close to 24. I just bought 6 today. I can load up the pulpit with a 24-point sermon and not think twice about it.
24 sermon. There you go. Well, there you have it, folks. Cannon Press, hotels, and Matt Carter going to the North American Mission Board, and Southern Living cookbooks. What more could you ask for in an episode of the Potluck Podcast? We hope you had your fill. We hope that you had your full. Support NAMB. Don't subscribe to Canon Plus. And make sure you get on October the 3rd at 8 a.m. and book a hotel. Preferably, do not take a room from Alan or myself if you can help it. Go cook something Southern this weekend. Use a cookbook. Don't use a cookbook. I don't care. Just cook something. And as always, as we say on the Potluck Podcast, join us next time. Same Baptist hour. Stay Baptist, my friends.